NFC. But let's talk about this Colts-Titans game. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us. It's a much different Indianapolis team at this point in the season than when they came to Nashville and went down 0-3. Now, the Titans look a lot different, too, now that they've started to get some of their skill position players back. But what stands out to you about Carson Wentz in this offense right now?
Well, I mean, he's healthy, first of all.
Right.
And his legs and his mobility, Buck, are part of his game. I mean, that's a big part of his game, and he didn't have that first time we played him. Let's just be honest. He did not have that. And here's the other thing that's important to know. The marriage between Carson Wentz and Frank Reich is a real thing because they both understand each other. Frank Reich understands the real strengths and weaknesses down to some nuances with this quarterback. So now he's healthy. And to the point of Carson Wentz, when he is healthy, he's hard to defend, because he's a big, strong athlete and a big, strong runner. And now the other thing that's happening, too, and I think it's a lot of the way that Frank is calling the game, the other thing that he's doing now is he's making good decisions with the ball. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's not turning it over. And let's go the other side of it. Defensively, they're getting takeaways in bunches. And so, but Carson Wentz, when he is healthy, he's somebody you have to deal with. And the Titans are going to get, Buck, the best Carson Wentz that there has been this season.
Yeah.
Up in Indy on Sunday. I believe that. You know that. The Titans also know that. That's what they're preparing for, because this is everything, this game up there for the Colts this week.
I couldn't be more excited to watch this, and given the implications in the AFC South and the fact that this series between these two teams is done before November 1st, this is as important game as the Titans will have all season. But Carson Wentz's efficiency, Mac, it looks like, and that offense is so much predicated off what they're able to do on the ground. Jonathan Taylor has been exceptional this season, and now that the offensive line in front of him is starting to get healthy, they got Quentin Nelson back last week. It seems to have made all the difference in the world. What kind of stands out about him as a player?
Well, Quentin Nelson is one of the best guards in the league, if not the best. If not the best. And he was coming out of the draft. I mean, it was no secret to anybody when you watch this kid play, you know. I mean, anyway, that's a big plus for them. And I like the fact that you bring up the running game, because that is their strength.
Right.
That is their strength, and people seem to neglect that sometimes. You know, it surprised me a little bit the last time we played him that they only handed it to him 10 times because they had an immobile quarterback.
Surprised Colts media too. I saw a lot of columns written about that.
Yeah, well, I'm not a columnist, but I'm when I'm up there looking and knowing the state of the non-mobility of their quarterback, that surprised me, because Jonathan Taylor, first of all, between the tackles is a beast.
Yeah.
He is a beast. And I mean, he's been that way since Wisconsin. And plus, he can hit the home run. And then you pair him with Nyheim Hines, who is just a killer. You know, when he gets the ball in his hand, and he gets the ball in his hands in a lot of ways. They jet sweep him. They screen him. You know, they can line him up in an empty set, either on the 2-man side, the 3-man side. He can run any part of the route tree. So they've got a running game, and they've got an offensive line. And plus, here's the thing too, Buck. Your running game is only as efficient as your play caller is willing to call it.
Right.
And Frank Reich is willing to call it. So the Titans defense is going to have to knuckle up to play a really strong and varied run game this week.
And they've done so throughout the course of these last 2 games, certainly, and really since the Jets game, Mac. It seems like this unit kind of understands what it needed to correct coming off of that game with the explosive plays and things of that nature. They're not bringing additional pressure. They haven't needed to. They've been able to efficiently get after the quarterback with 4, and occasionally those zone exchange pressures that they like to use with guys like Elijah Molden. This Titans defense has been one of the biggest reasons that they've been able to come through this tough stretch. And now Harold Landry on the injury report with a hamstring. We don't know what his status is going to be just yet at this point. But what they've been able to do defensively, how impressive has that been to you, or has this been who they've been capable of being the entire time?
Well, I mean, the last 2 weeks have been a different challenge defensively.
Sure.
I mean, it really has been, than this week is going to be. This week is a different challenge for your defense for this reason. Neither one of the other 2 opponents, they're good teams, but they don't dedicate a lot to a physical run game.
Right.
This football team does, and so that necessitates you doing some different things. I mean, you not only got to be gap conscious, you've got to be gap and knock back strong. and you've got to be able to do that. They have been able to cover with 7 and been able to rush with 4 and stop the run with the last 2 weeks, basically with 7 in the box, or as you talk with those zone pressures, they've been able to do that. Well, this group up here is probably going to necessitate a little bit more against the run, just because Indy will commit to the run. Just like the Titans commit to the run, even if people load up to stop it, they still commit to it. So this is a different challenge. To me, this is a more physical challenge, run game-wise, than the last 2 weeks have been.
It'll be interesting to see. We've seen such high-level play from certainly David Long the last couple of weeks, and his game against Kansas City, I thought it was one of his best. And not just him individually, but I thought Dane Cruikshank played a fantastic game. I thought Greg Maben, coming off basically the bench in Arizona's practice squad. I thought that the game plan so well suited the personnel that they have the last couple of weeks, because as you mentioned, this is going to be a different kind of game. How important is it going to be for them to be able to be sound in their gap assignments and not give up those explosive plays?
Well, it's huge. It's going to be huge. And again, as I say, it's a different challenge.
Yeah.
And every week is. I mean, every week, you've got your base that you work from, Buck, but defensively, every week, you've got to be game specific with what goes on, because nobody ever does the same thing. And the opponents that you play, and plus, it evolves during the season. And so this is going to be huge. You mentioned those guys coming in. I mean, they did a tremendous job, and kudos to them, and kudos to the assistant coaches, because when somebody new like that comes in, I've experienced it in my coaching career in this league, the assistant coaches have to spend night and day with those guys.
Yeah.
Because you're not only getting them up to speed with what your scheme is, you're getting them up to speed with what a game plan is. And then having to play all the snaps that they had to play, it was commendable. It really was. But this week, and I keep going back to it, because when I keep grinding the tape and looking at it and just knowing their mindset up there, and knowing that they've got their people back healthy now, especially across the offensive front, and both backs healthy, and a quarterback now. See, if they can run the ball, well, then all of a sudden this half boot and this full boot game become a real problem, because Carson Wentz now can move. There were instances when we played him the first time on the 26th of September that he had open areas and he wouldn't run.
Right.
He wouldn't run. He was going to run this time, Buck.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. Getting dragged currently, David, across the internet, because we had a Colts radio analyst on to start the show. We're talking about the game, and he doesn't call Derrick Henry. He just calls him the Steel Horse. And I thought that was a funny nickname. So I put it out on Twitter, David, that which is the better nickname, King Henry or Steel Horse? And Titans fans are legitimately pissed off at me.
Well, I mean, Steel Horse is a solid name. I mean,
I don't think it sucks.
It doesn't suck, yeah, for sure. But I mean, come on, it's King Henry. Like, that's who he is.
That's the end of the discussion. It's King Henry until the end of time. It's
I mean, you can. There's tons of nicknames people can probably come up with for him, but like King Henry, that's what he's going to be known as.
Is that your favorite one? Because he's got El Tractorcito, he's got King Henry. I mean, he is one of the most unstoppable. You guys as a unit are one of the most unstoppable forces when it comes to what you guys have been able to do on the ground this year. Is King Henry your favorite of the nicknames?
King Henry is what I'm riding with, but like those other nicknames kind of just make it more fun. We definitely welcome new awesome nicknames, but King Henry is the champ, I'd say.
All right, so I don't want to ask you to get reflective, because I know you guys are in the middle of it right now, and you got an incredibly important divisional game coming up on Sunday. But I mean, you were a part of this. You've been a part of this group for a while now. You've seen the things that Derrick has done. You've been a part of the things that Derrick has done. Does it surprise you guys the way that it's shocking to us that he's still doing it at this level to start the season? It's crazy to me, Dave.
I mean, we see the way he works. We see the focus that he brings. We see who he is. The body he's been blessed with, and I'd say no, man. It's kind of what we expect he brings, and he's one of the most competitive guys I've ever played with, and he's hungry, and he shows up with that freaking ambition every day, and it's a lot of fun to block for him. It's an absolute honor, and sometimes I just sit back and I'm like, man, getting to block for Derrick Henry, like one of the greatest running backs ever in his prime.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool to take a step back and think about that.
I had one of those moments last year, and maybe it's because there weren't people or a lot of people allowed to watch in the stands last year because of what we were all going through with COVID-19.
Yeah.
I just had one of these moments where I'm like, it is such a sports tragedy that more people aren't here to witness what you guys are doing and what Derek is doing on a game in, game out basis. And now to see that kind of brought back to life. I mean, I know you felt that on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's poetry in motion when he starts rolling in. It's a lot of fun to be a part of, and the football fans that can appreciate an old school mentality, go out there and run the ball, smash mouth football. I think more people are starting to be like, wow, that's some good football that they're playing.
It's incredibly exciting to watch, and it's been a lot of fun to cover you guys over the course of this stretch that you guys and Derek have been on. David Quessenberry, Titans right tackle. So what's kind of settled in for you all as a unit, David? Because I mean, we talk about pass protection and the fact that Ryan was getting knocked around pretty early on in the season, and so far it's been such a buttoned-up operation. Is there anything that's discernibly changed, or are we just not looking at individual sacks as specific circumstances the way that we need to be? Are we blowing that out of proportion?
Yeah, I don't know if anything's changed. I mean, we definitely we can't be letting Ryan get hit that much, sack that much, hit that much. All of that was a big emphasis on us. But more than anything, I think we have a group that comes in and really just tries to, grow as a unit. Everybody get on the same page every day and work together. Training camp was where there's a lot of injuries, guys kind of bouncing around. So I think the more and more we get to work together and get these reps and get these game reps and get everybody kind of flowing into rhythm, and that does nothing but help. But nothing but helps us go out there and execute on game days.
And it's not been easy for you guys to be able to have that kind of consistency with all the way that the injury bug has kind of been across the board for this particular team. From the standpoint of Indianapolis, David, and I'm sure you've talked about this. I don't get to hang out at practice as much as I used to, guys. I got the radio show now in the middle of the day. But so I'm sure you've been asked about this Colts defensive front, and now you have one of their guys that used to play for them on your own defensive line in Danico Autry. How much different do they look from a year ago, where you guys went into their house last season and really pushed them around?
Yeah, they definitely have some new faces over there playing for them, but that's a good defensive unit right there. They play hard. They get a lot of turnovers. It's a team that is well coached, a team that we really respect, and it's playing Indy is always a tough game. It's they got a good team, and so it's going to be a big test for us to go up there and be able to execute our game plan and get one up there.
With Leonard specifically, he presents problems to offenses, across the board, and he's been particularly active when it comes to creating turnovers. How difficult is he to kind of get a hat on hat when it comes to a second level defender, and how much do you have to be aware of where he's lining up at any given point?
Yeah, he's a fantastic player, great instincts. He's been forcing turnovers all year with that, that hammer, that punch the ball out, and that's a big task for us to make sure that we get a hat on him and don't let him get any cheap ones. Don't let him get any free shots on our ball carriers, and so that's been not really a huge thing, but like a huge
key
question. It's just a key, yeah, of course, to get a hat on him and make sure that we can run the ball, because he's a tackling machine. He can get turnovers. He's a talented player, so it's always a big task to go against a guy of that caliber.
Now, he tried that in week 3 against Derrick Henry, and Derrick put a shoulder into him. What was the reaction when you guys watched that back on film?
He went for it, but
you don't got to be modest, David. Come on.
He went for it. Yeah,
we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, he went for that. I bet if he could go back, he wouldn't try that again. That was, sometimes it's a swing and a miss, but that's definitely something that we're trying to avoid getting give him any free punches on our guys.
David Quessenberry, Titans right tackle. It is going to be a fascinating game because I've been so surprised by Indianapolis and particularly by Carson Wentz, Coach Venturi, because we were going through, kind of catching up on some of the film, and I do a weekly film breakdown podcast with Greg Cosell of NFL Films, and Greg was kind of pointing some things out to me. And the fact that his only interception on the season was that weird shovel pass pick that he threw against the Los Angeles Rams. Are you surprised even watching how much more efficient he's been?
Well, I will say yes and no on that. I was asked before they made the deal to, just to give my set of eyes on it. And then after we made the deal, I made a 7-play video, not necessarily to sell it, but just to show them what I saw in him. And I got a 10-play filter out of last year. I didn't even go back to 2017. And I got a 10-play filter that showed everything athletically that he could do. Now, my only concern was, and I've seen this happen so many times, was he broken after the Philadelphia situation? Was he broken? There was never a doubt in my mind. This kid wasn't the number 2 pick in the draft for nothing. This is a superior, talented guy with a humongously high Wonderlic. There isn't anything lacking, okay? And then I kind of said, okay, the reunion with Reich when he played good, Frank knows how to handle a quarterback. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to be fine with this. So, I expected that we would get some type of play, somewhere between 217 and 219 that would be damn good. What we're seeing right now, Buck, is we're seeing the 217 Wentz. We're seeing the guy who, before he got hurt, was in the conversation for MVP in the league. He did lead the league in 2017 with the best QBR in the league. And I don't know, that's one of the big key statistics that I do care about. And I don't know if you know, Sunday, he came out there with an 82 QBR. 79 wins it. Rodgers won it last year with 79. And I said it this way, he has been for us like kind of reading a really good book. And when you turn every chapter, there's something new. Like last week, Frank used him on the designer runs, the zone reads. He scored a touchdown on it, 3rd and 1. He's a mad bomber. And we have lost that since Luck. We went 2 years without trying to pierce the defense. So, and he's doing all that. So, no, you're exactly right. And you're seeing a much different guy. What you saw in week 3 was the courageous guy that probably shouldn't have even been on the field. Really and truly, what he went through that day to play. And Tennessee took advantage like they should have. The minute Tennessee got an advantage situation, 2nd and long, they brought half of Nashville. Honest to God, they brought everybody in and his brother, and that was the thing to do because he couldn't get out of trouble. But you're going to see a different guy Sunday here.
I think that's such a great callback, Coach, because now in these last 2 games with the Titans having come down to a close one here on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, and then just basically wiping the floor with the Chiefs at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, which is as shocking a result as I've ever seen in 5 years covering the NFL. They aren't really bringing additional pressure. They've been able to generate it with 4, and they've had a lot of success. Obviously, Harold Landry's been a high-level player, but now he's actually got some help to allow him just that extra fraction of a second to get to the quarterback. How much have you seen Tennessee's defense kind of develop while watching them on film after, struggling at the start of the season, certainly with explosive plays? The pressure, it seems, is there.
Well, even when they were struggling, Buck, I always thought that when they would get in at what I call advantage situations, when they would get in 2nd and long, and particularly 3rd and long, when they could get their I call it NASCAR package, where you have Dupree and Landry on the edges, where you have Simmons and one of my all-time favorites that I can't believe we left out of here, Autry inside, and then they give you different looks with it. They can swing Landry around. I call him the spinner. He'll stand up and move around. They blitz with it. I think Long has really added to their team speed. But when they got in that package, even when they were struggling, that's when they played their best. Now, what happened Sunday was by jumping on Kansas City and jumping on them fast and just kind of blowing them out in the first 10 minutes, what that allowed is Tennessee to play to their best ratio. They could now play as if every down was third down the rest of the way. So I think what we saw was by far their best performance, but I think they were also assisted by situation because it allowed them to get their best guys on the field. But when you look at it, you know, Dupree has, 35 or 39 sacks in his career. Autry has 35. Landry's now sitting there at 7.5, and he's always given the Colts trouble. And then Simmons is the investment pick, and, you know, he certainly can do it at times. So, you know, you've got 4, and I think Dupree's coming. He got his first sack for you Sunday. You know, you've got 4 guys that can get after it. You know, and the biggest thing the Colts have to do when you look at it the other way is they've got to keep them off balance on first down and not let them get into those ratios.
Coach Rick Venturi.